Today, we're going to break down the really stark findings of the Armed Conflicts Survey 2025. It paints a picture of a world that is, frankly, on the brink. And we're going to dig into what these pretty alarming trends mean for all of us. So let's just start with a number that's hard to even wrap your head around. In a single year, almost 250,000 people lost their lives in violent conflicts. That's a staggering 23% jump from the year before, with the wars in Ukraine, Palestine, Sudan, and Myanmar being especially deadly. And the human cost goes way beyond just the fatalities. A record-breaking 122 million people have been forced to flee their homes because of war. And this number, it's been climbing and climbing for a decade now, which tells you everything you need to know about how unstable our world is becoming. Look, these aren't just numbers on a screen, they're symptoms of a world that's really in turmoil. They tell a story of violence that's spiraling and suffering on a scale we haven't seen before. So what's really driving this global crisis? Let's find out. Okay, so the first major driver is a huge shakeup in global power. The very systems that were built to keep the peace, they're fracturing. And that's making the world a much, much more dangerous and unpredictable place. For about 80 years, what's called the rules-based international order, with the UN at its heart, has been the foundation for global security. It's basically the playbook for how nations are supposed to interact. But right now, that very foundation is cracking under some serious pressure. We're seeing this intense competition between major powers come roaring back. At the same time, you have a more isolationist America First policy in the US, and a growing number of countries, especially in the global South, are rejecting those old Western-led norms. So what's the result? Well, international laws get broken more often, and the UN Security Council, it's just getting ignored on really critical decisions. And this has incredibly real consequences. This breakdown has led to a dramatic spike in direct wars between countries. We saw the most serious conflict between India and Pakistan, both nuclear powers, since 1999. And for the very first time, a direct, conventional war between Israel and Iran. So as this old order gets weaker, it doesn't just create chaos, it creates a vacuum. And you know what happens with vacuums, right? Powerful new players are stepping in to fill that void. If it's not always nation versus nation anymore, then who are the other major players we're seeing on battlefields all over the world? Who's really holding the power on the ground? Well, the answer, more and more often, is non-state armed groups, or NSAGs for short. We're talking about all kinds of organizations, from rebel militias to incredibly powerful drug cartels, that operate outside of any state's control but have immense power. And they are completely reshaping conflicts across the globe. And their influence is just incredible. There are 380 of these groups that are a major concern right now. More than 200 million people, that's 200 million, now live under their full or partial control. And get this, 85% of them are essentially acting like governments. They're providing public services, even collecting taxes. In many places, they're the ones in charge. Now, this dangerous combination of more state-on-state wars and these powerful armed groups, it has a devastating human cost. And that crisis is being made so much worse by another really alarming trend, the total collapse of humanitarian support. So while humanitarian needs are just skyrocketing to record levels, the resources are being shifted somewhere else. Just take a look at defense spending. NATO defense spending alone is projected to more than double in the next decade, from around $2 trillion to $5 trillion. And that leads to this incredibly stark contrast. All around the world, 300 million people desperately need humanitarian aid. But as of June 2025, less than a fifth, just 18.5% of the money needed to actually help them has been secured. The gap is massive. A huge driver of this funding crisis is the enormous cuts from the United States. The effective dismantling of the U.S. Agency for International Development, that's USAID, it marks a complete reversal of America's historic role as the world's leading provider of aid. And the result is a devastating cut in aid to every single major conflict region. Sub-Saharan Africa and the Americas have been hit the absolute hardest, with cuts of over 34% and nearly 40%. It's turning situations that were already dire into total catastrophes. So, what does all this mean when you put it all together? We've got a fracturing global order, we've got the rise of these new armed groups, and we have a collapse in aid. What does this unstable future actually look like? Well, it's a dangerous feedback loop. A fragmenting world order leads to more conflict. That conflict creates these unprecedented humanitarian needs. But those needs are showing up at the exact moment that the resources to deal with them are disappearing. And of course, that just fuels even more instability. It's a vicious cycle. And the survey itself makes this crystal clear. This is not some temporary blip. We are living through a fundamental, ongoing shift in how the world works, a big move toward more division, more rivalry, and more conflict. And that leaves us with this huge, critical question for the future. As the old systems of global stability and humanitarian support just keep getting weaker, what, or maybe who, is going to replace them? And what kind of world will that create for every single one of us?